want to record something interesting. It came true in the night. It wasn't really a dream, but I passed through the night. Somewhere maybe 4 o'clock. So even through the night hours, but they're not dreams yet. I'm still hit, but there's a lot of what you call thoughts coming through in the night. Even night thoughts may be more subconscious than day thoughts. It's possible that way. Anyway, I had this mysterious night thoughts. I realized that there is a command in the Bible that says, walk before me and be blameless. Now how do you walk? You walk with your 2 legs and your 2 hands. So there are 2 opposites. But there is a third opposite. And what is it? It's using the mind. So when the mind interfaces with the physical 2 hands, you get 6 opposites. And where is the 7th? The 7th below where? Is actually the soul. Or another way of putting it, it is the presence. The presence is not actually a mind. There's one thing straight we must know. It is in between is the 7th point. We can call it the soul. So the awareness of the presence is not possible for many people. That's one thing for sure. It is actually at the level of the 7th, and not everybody is aware of it. Most people are simply content with the use of their mind. And so you're using your mind, you get to the 6th location, but the 7th is unknowable to them. One thing is very clear from this illustration of the walk, is that the mind is very important for the purpose of interference pattern. Now, without the mind, there is a lack of interference. Same thing happens when a person has an intercourse. You move and rub at each other, but there will be no sensation zero if the mind were not in use. The mind has to be played out in a sexual intercourse for there to be pleasure. And where does the pleasure come from? The pleasure comes at the 7th level, I guess, through the inhaling and exhaling. And people sense it as pleasure, but they don't sense it as breath or as presence. And this is because they hug at each other. The hugging gives you the feeling that you are being approved. And both of them are approving each other, physically approving each other. And it's pleasurable at the same time. So because of that, they didn't realize the beauty and the joy of simply being naked and being nothing. You see, when you look at another person, the full body of the other person, which is naked, and you use your thoughts at the same time to interfere with this nakedness, somehow, somewhere, there's a hollow. And what happens is that the man and woman finds the hollow, and so quickly they hug at each other, and they get approved as a result of that hugging. So they forgot to stay naked, just looking at each other. And it's not just about forgetfulness. They couldn't possibly do that actually. Because of the hollow, when you see each other naked with your eyes and with your mind, and because of the hollow, they are forced to quickly cover that hollow with a physical me. And so they hug each other. You see, think about it in the Garden of Eden. Both of them were there. What do you mean by eating the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil? Yeah. They saw each other with the mind on a naked body. But instead of staying naked and discovering the tree of life, which is the hollow, they ate the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, which is using two persons to hug each other. And as a result, they felt the me of fruit, but they missed the hollow within, which is the tree of life. Notice that I've interpreted the Garden of Eden differently. But notice also the truth that the tree of life is actually in the middle of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Isn't it right? Because then there, when two people are facing each other, the other side being naked and your mind interfering with the nakedness, right there is a hollow in between. But instead, they're caught up with the two opposites. So they ran to each other and hugged each other. And thus both Adam and Eve fell. Isn't that right? You must have asked yourself, how is it possible that Eve fell and then Adam fell? Why must both of them fell? It is because the hugging itself, the intercourse itself, the pleasure that comes in two people together, that is the eating of the knowledge of good and evil. But right there in between, before they could have hugged each other, there is a hollow. But they didn't see the hollow. They couldn't take the hollow. They couldn't accept themselves being hollow. And that causes a problem. You see, I was analyzing myself. How is it that I noticed the tremendous presence in myself? I noticed that the being naked in public gives me a very high degree of presence, so to speak. I enjoy a lot being naked in public. When eyes are seeing me, I enjoy it. I've been asking myself why. Why I wanted that situation. Then I realized something very important. You see, when I remain naked, not naked, half naked, in public, I notice there are some cases where one man or fellow is so actuated by my half nakedness that they wanted to fall in love with me. That kept me thinking, how is it that nakedness or half nakedness causes them to come? It is because somehow they could not resist. When they see another person naked, they felt hollow. And so every part of our body yearned to find a covering for the hollowness. And they said they need another person to grab on and hug. I mean, it's taking place every moment. When you have a conversation with anybody, because there's someone in front of you, somehow you feel yourself slightly hollow. You want to be attended to. Your me gets a bit cancelled. That person somehow shifts you away from yourself. So immediately you find approval from him. So because of that, you judge him. You do something to shield yourself, to eat the knowledge of good and evil, to find approval of the me from the other party. You just steal that approval from the other party. But something is very different about me, interestingly. I could remain naked, and yet I don't need to hug another person, steal the other person's approval for me. I can remain naked in bed and allow somebody to see me naked. I don't have to steal his attention or his love from me. I don't have to. The hollowness gives me a tremendous amount of presence, which is sufficient enough to be me. And this explains me, which is so different from everybody else that I know. In fact, people are very surprised that I could be bare-bodied every time in front of them. And they're wondering how come I could do that. In fact, it shook them for a while, because every time they see my naked, they felt a sense of hollow. So they prefer that I should get dressed. But then I don't want to get dressed. So how? So that's what's happening, I noticed. People, when they feel the hollowness, they immediately rush to find the cover-up. They steal the attention for themselves, the approval for themselves from others. But for myself, very funny. When people beat me up and people push me down, I accept the push down. I remain hollow in front of them. I inherit the presence. You see, what is happening is that when I am half bare-bodied and people look at me, all of them felt hollow, but they shut it immediately for themselves. But because they see me, I inherited whatever they feel inside the hollow. And that's why I feel a tremendous hollow in me when I'm in front of other people, in public. And that tremendous sense of hollow, I loved it a lot, because it is the presence, which I'm so familiar with. Just being nothing, I felt everything. But people don't know about that at all. They have to dress up themselves. I've never seen anybody in this lifetime who is so willing to undress themselves. And most of these people, when they undress themselves, it's only for sexual intercourse. When they undress themselves, it's about masturbation. They're just doing it for the purpose of pleasure. They don't want the taste of hollow. So they just do it for the purpose of pleasure. The pleasure helps them to cover themselves up and find approval in themselves. They miss out the centrality beneath or within the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is the tree of life. These thoughts, I became aware of it after a night's sleep last night. I didn't really sleep, I slept late. And so all these thoughts come to me, giving me an answer to the question, why? Why is it that I enjoy nakedness and why is it that everybody cannot find that nakedness? In going through this discussion, I realized that the mind is different from presence altogether. And for those of people who are looking for presence by shutting out their mind, they are real on the wrong path. The mind has to somewhat see nakedness. We can't shut off that mind. The mind must see nakedness so that the hollow appears. And when the hollow appears, the person must be willing to accept the hollow within themselves. That is presence. Presence is not the shutting off of the mind. You see, reality involves the intersection of two space-time. So you cannot remove your mind, because without your mind, the world cannot intersect with me. And I need the world to intersect with me so that the reality of nakedness appears before me. Nakedness is not about an empty space. Nakedness has to be the world. When a person intersects with the world, he's troubled because he's seeing himself on the other side. This is where he's tested whether he could receive the hollow or not. You can't simply just watch nothing. That is not presence at all.